Inspired Insights Live. Just checking the jiggamabobs. We are also live on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm so happy to be with you today on this beautiful day of life. And today we're talking about something that I also know, and that is, do you ever find yourself, or do you frequently find yourself feeling guilty, feeling that uneasy feeling like of unfulfillment, listlessness? Maybe I need another coffee. And or just feeling off and you just don't know why. I know this feeling. And this feeling could actually be a symptom of you just not being your best self and or the best version that you can be. So guilt is an emotion that many of us experience, and it is actually a very useful emotion because it tells us that, hey, we didn't do something the way we shouldn't have done. We didn't do something the way we should have done it. We could have done better. And it's a really great emotion that we can use to learn from it. I know for myself, especially for many high achievers out there, we feel guilt when we know we didn't do the best that we could. We feel like we could have done better. And sometimes you just have a day where at the end of the day, you just feel off and you don't know why. I recently had one of these days, and it's one of the inspirations for this live, because when I was actually taking the time to reflect at the end of the day, I thought to myself, okay, what could be going on here? What's happening? And I went through these questions that I'm going to pose to you now, that we're going to be going through in this live. And some of these questions that you want to ask yourself when you're feeling this way, when you're feeling off, or you're feeling listless, when you're feeling that guilty feeling, and you just don't know why. It's really important to take the time, and we'll go through these questions in more detail, but I'll just run through some of the questions you would ask yourself. You ask yourself, did I do the best that I could today? Did my actions today align with the best version of me? Can I be proud of who I was today and how I showed up? Did I act with integrity? This is a huge one. And did I treat others the way that I would wish to be treated? Or would be happy that I was treated this way? These are really great questions for us to ask ourselves to help us align with that best version of yourself. So with the did I do the best that I could today? When I was feeling off, it was last Monday. It was the time change. And the time change gets many of us, but I just really didn't understand what was going on. I just was feeling off. I was dragging. And I just didn't feel like, I just had that feeling at the end of the day, man, I should have done better today. I should have done better. But then, I took the time because so many of us were just so distracted by so many things. We don't take this time that is really important, because when we go through something, we need to be able to process what we go through. This is a lot of what you also would go through in therapy. You process what you've gone through and you work through the emotions and you pull out the lessons. You try and see it from other perspectives and you learn from it. So when I was just kind of reflecting on my day, I asked myself, did I do the best that I could today? So the first thing that came to me when I was feeling all this guilt and I was trying to figure out what I did, where it was coming from, I realized hey, I wanted to do better today and I didn't do the best that I thought that I could. And then I asked myself, did I do the best that I could? Because we've had a live about this beforehand. We have to I think a lot of the time we're just doing the best that we can with the tools that we have. And so did I do the best that I could that day? When I asked myself, yes, I did the best that I could. I did the best that I could considering the circumstances, and that helps. And then I also extract the learnings. Okay, I did the best that I could that day, but what can I learn from today? How can I, if approached with another similar day or approached with another similar constellation, how can I be the best version of myself? How can I show up better? What can I learn from this experience? Because this is this is why we're experiencing these emotions, because they're there as teaching lessons for us. They're not there as something that we should ignore. And then a beautiful thing to take out of this is the comparison factor, because so often when we're feeling this way and we ask ourselves, maybe you ask, did I do the best that I could today? Then you may even feel tempted to compare yourself to others, maybe people you work with or people you know that are in similar learning journeys. And if you then begin to compare yourself to others, you're robbing yourself of the experience, because they are on their own unique journey. While you can learn from them, most certainly can learn from them, you shouldn't compare yourself to them, because comparison really is the thief of joy. We live in this society, and I want to touch on this a little bit further later on, where we're just so inundated by, I'm speaking to you through social media, so it really is also how you use it. But it also is just such a tool where we compare ourselves to others, where instead of seeing what we do have, we look at what they have and we covet what they want, what they have, instead of looking at where we are, what we're doing, and doing the best that we can, and maybe learning from them and taking that. It's really not useful to compare yourself to others in that way. And when we're going through this, journey of self-discovery and asking yourself, did I show up as my best self today? The question is you need to know who your best self is. So that is one of the most vital components of all of this, is understanding who that version of you is that you want to show up as, who that version of you is, who is your best self, who is that best version of you. And this is great with tools such as when we do exercises where we look at what a future would look like how do you want, if you're looking at the last days of your life, what is that life that you would want to live? Like, what are the impressions you would have wanted to leave on people? What is that legacy you want to live? Or even if you had a month to live, how would you live differently? These are great questions to ask yourself, because in that you understand what your values are, who that version of you is, who you really want to be. And so this is really important that we take the time to get to know ourselves. Like, I know this world is busy, and I know we all have so many things going on. But if you don't take the time for you to get to know you, to evaluate where you are on this journey, you're really like a cork bobbing in the ocean. These are also personal goals that we need to set. And so one of the next things I wanted to address is, when we're doing this evaluation of, did I show up as my best self today? And one, you're not comparing yourself to others. The next thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to blame others. We need to take accountability for our actions. Guys, we're attorneys. This system that we work in is based on blame. But at the end of the day, things happen because it's a multitude of reasons of things coming through. And this is not to like victim blame or anything like that. But I am saying that when we look at this, how things come together, maybe somebody wronged you, but there is a lesson that you can learn out of it. There is a way that you can take that lesson and say, okay, that person didn't act like their best self, and that was a really awful situation, or whatever it was. What can I learn from it? How can I come out of this situation better? Instead of blaming that person for everything, take the lesson, because blaming is just pushing it away, and you're not going to learn anything from it, because you have absolved yourself of any guilt or of any wrongdoing, and you're scot-free and clear. Either way, you're clear of the situation. So we want to take personal accountability for the things that happen for us, because they're great lessons for us to learn. And so other questions that we have to ask ourselves is, can I be proud of who and where and what you did at the end of the day? So this is also a fun one. Like, I go through this exercise all the time. Like, was I happy with who I was that day? Did I align with myself? You know, when we've talked about this before, when you spend time with people, you are a reflection of those people. So are you happy with the person that you are around them? How did you show up? Can you be proud of yourself? And this is a huge one that I love. Did you act with integrity? I feel like, especially in South Florida, you often see this where I feel like people cut corners, people don't act with integrity, and what we do and how we act, they're like waves. And so whatever waves you're putting out, spread. So if we act with integrity and we treat others with integrity, then we also get that back. You're not always going to get it back, but I just see this world where we live in where people just cut corners, and it doesn't help someone at the end of the day. When you cut a corner, how are you affecting that person at the end of the day that is on the receiving end of your cut corner? You know, because we live in such an instant society now, like we have forgotten that things take time. You can't just plant a seed and expect it to shoot up into a tree the next day. Things require time. We need to nurture them. And yes, we can't have, maybe you can cut corners and it'll look solid and it'll look like it is what you want it to be, but it's not, because you cut the corners and it's not fully there, a full thing of integrity. So this is just something to think about. Like, did you act as the best person that you could with integrity? Because when you treat other people with integrity, just think about how you feel when people treat you with and act with integrity. It's a totally different way if someone is being dishonest and someone is cutting corners and someone is not acting in a certain way. We all know that feeling. They feel totally different. And so some of the things that I also wanted to explore are, what are some of the most common reasons why you didn't show up as your best self? And I noticed one, and we touched on this, and some common themes is I feel like we live in a world where it's just so easily distracted, and many are suffering from a lack of motivation. This is not laziness, a lack of motivation. And if you reflect back at your day and you're like, man, maybe I didn't show up as my best self. Well, what were you doing instead? What did you do where you weren't able to give 100%? Were you distracted by your email? Were you distracted by your phone ringing? Were you distracted by social media? Were you distracted by anything? What were you doing instead? Because when we are spending so much time in our devices, we're not looking around, we're not able to fully focus our attention on the task at hand. And that also kind of takes away at us. It's almost like, I think we all know that feeling of having binged a series, or many of us know that series of binge watching something. And at least for me, I know that, yeah, like I feel like, oh, that was cool. You know, you feel on the one hand, like you're like, oh, I got to the bottom of that, I saw it all. But then on the other hand, you just don't. I personally don't always feel fully fulfilled if I've spent all day attached to a device or a screen. Like, I don't think we're designed that way. And I think it's important for us to be able to take time to step away from these devices. And if you do find that your device or technology is standing in the way of you being your best self, this is a tip that I got from my therapist. When you go to pick up your phone or go to check your email or whatever you're noticing it is that is distracting you, you ask, why now, what for, and what else? Because we are addicted to these things. If you notice, sometimes you're on your phone and you don't know why, or you go to open your phone to go in one application and suddenly you're in another application without even thinking about it. We're all guilty of this. So when you examine who your best self is, examine your behaviors, examine what you're doing that isn't aligned with your best self, and allow yourself to explore what that best version of you is. What do they do? What habits do they do? You know, we also can explore into our past. Like, what were you doing when there was a time where you really felt like you were showing up as your best? What were you doing? Is there something different that you were doing that you're not doing now? And allow yourself to reintegrate those habits. Because when we show up at our best, it only can pass on to the people that are around us. It can pass on to our families, the people that we work with. It has a net positive effect, opposed to when we don't show up as our best selves. Like, you just see it in traffic. If one person's honking, everybody's cranky. It gets worse and worse. Or one person blocks the intersection and other people block the intersection because they think that they're not going to be able to continue on. But what if instead of that one person blocking the intersection, they just held back and waited for it to clear, and maybe they missed the light, but the next people were able to go and they didn't block the intersection, and so then you were able to go. It's this flow of acting at your best and believing that it's all happening in a good way for you. It's a delicate balance, and it's also something that we need to get in the habit of doing, because we've wired ourselves in a certain way. So allow yourself to wire yourself for who the best version of you is. Allow yourself to embrace that person. And if you're feeling guilty that you didn't show up as your best self, what can you do tomorrow? What can you do in this next moment to show up as the best version of you? That's all we can do in life. Nothing's instant. It's all step by step. And if we go things step by step, doing the best that we can, imagine the life that you can lead. Imagine the lives that you affect by leading that life. Imagine what a more beautiful world this can be. Hope you guys enjoyed this tip. Love to hear what your insights were, and go be your best selves today. Do the best that you can. Learn from it. You got this.